All
All
right,
right.
all right, all right. Yes,
Awesome.
we got them locked in.
Yes, sir.
You know what it is? Is Where's My Damn Podcast? Yeah, thank you to all the listeners that's tuning in right now. We appreciate you. I got a very special guest on the line. Yes, that's right. He's a fellow comedian. He's gonna break it down for us. So yeah, this should be fun. But like I said, Where's My Damn Podcast? Thank you for checking out the podcast, and you know, yeah, yeah. Like I said, be sure to share, like, subscribe, review. Definitely would love everyone's feedback, and hopefully, hopefully you like it, and I'll keep continuing to bring you content as we go along in this crazy world. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Hell yeah.
Um, but like I said, yeah, I got a very special guest. Um, he's a fellow comedian. I've been seeing him, uh, the last couple years since I started comedy. So he's an amazing comedian. He's awesome, funny, hilarious. So um, I welcome you to the show, the one and only Connor Martin.
What's up, Elvin?
I'm good, bruh. How you
Who's
doing
the?
on this Sunday morning or afternoon?
I'm pretty good. Who's this amazing comedian that you're gonna have on?
I know, right?
Oh, me?
Yeah,
What?
some guy named Connor Martin. I don't know. I don't know
You
if you heard of him,
crazy?
but
No, no, that guy blows.
he literally no, no,
All everywhere.
everywhere.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
in your
I'm
face, bitches. No.
I'm good. You know, it's I got the Sunday off, which is rare because I
Yeah,
work retail, so it's
yeah,
nice to just be free,
right. Yeah, man. That 9 to 5.
chatting some
Yeah, that nine to
stuff.
five. Real,
Yeah,
real life, right?
yeah, exactly. I need a 9 to 5. That would be more conducive to comedy. I've got like a fucking 1:30 to
Mm-hmm.
10, 7 a.m. to whenever. I'm all over the place with my job,
There,
but yeah, eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to drop it if I ever get this comedy thing actually working on a real level.
right, right. Yeah.
Would be nice.
But yeah, man, let's fucking get into it, man.
Yeah.
You know, I recently started seeing you in the different open mics, so it's
Yeah.
glad to you know I know, man, this time is obviously it's crazy with the whole pandemic. A lot of people are staying in, and rightfully so. And it at the end of the day, it's people's decision if they choose to stay in or stay out or whatever. But
Yeah.
it was kind
Yeah.
of good to see you. Haven't seen you in a minute. Um,
Yeah,
and
man. Those first several months were like pretty
yeah,
shitty. Nothing was
right,
happening.
right. But yeah, man. So I'll definitely ask you some comedy questions, but like I said,
Word.
I try to keep it loose and not be
For
so
sure.
you know tied down to anything
Structured.
structured. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
For
yeah,
sure.
man. How did you break it down for us? How did you get started in comedy, and how many years you've been doing it?
Um. Well, that's a good question. I guess like I'll tell you how it all went. That way, I won't have to thing because I feel like I started like 8 years ago, but I only feel like basically I started 22, just before I turned 22. I had been like out of hand and shit for years in my youth, and at one point, like I wanted to be a professional magician, so I already had like the performing idea on the
Oh,
brain,
okay.
But then it was starting to it's like a fun hobby, but there's a lot of there's like a lack of originality in magic to a certain degree, because you learn tricks that someone else invented and you perform those, and it's like that's basically, it's not like looked down upon the same way it would be in comedy if you were doing other people's material. It's sort of just how it goes,
Hmm.
but it's like fun, but it's almost like juggling more than it's like being creative. It's almost more of a physical act. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
like 5 years into that, I was like, you know what? I've been watching stand-up comedy my whole life since high school. Like every January was stand-up month on Comedy Central. Every Friday night they would just run half hours back to back, and I was a loser, so I would just sit at home and watch that shit. So I always loved it, and I just didn't ever. I wasn't a class clown or anything. I'm a pretty shy person in real
Hmm.
life, so I assumed that was something where I don't know. It's how it is. Like with stand up, I don't know how you
Hmm.
started, but before you start, you kind of assume like, oh, that's not something you can just do. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like up until recently, maybe with podcasts and stuff, it seems more accessible now because people kind of have opened up this whole world to us. But when I was 22, that was 2012. So the internet was, in full swing, but not quite like it is
Yeah.
now, and but basically, so I'd been doing magic. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can learn to be funny, which is almost an embarrassing thing to admit, because it's like everyone's funny sometimes, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You growing up and you make funny comments, but usually you don't know why or how you
Right.
were funny. It just kind of comes up. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to like construct something funny on purpose,
Right. Yeah. Before the whole getting into or getting involved in comedy, because yeah, like you said, once in a while, if you're with your group of friends or
Yeah.
just hanging around,
Yeah.
everyone's cracking joke, everyone's snapping like, oh, haha,
Uh-huh.
get a big applause or laughter.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
it comes down to it, it's a little different when you start to like put it all together.
Yeah, because when you're with your friends, like truly occur, and then everyone riffs on the premise, and you wouldn't even use those words back in the day, like, oh, that was funny. Like you're not even aware of it. It's just kind of a. But then
Hmm.
eventually, if you want to like really do it, you got to it. You can't bank on for a whole career. So basically, I've always been of the mind, especially it might have something to do with the fact that I had done magic for so many years, because when you do that, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of things to buy. You literally attempt to learn. Whereas with stand up, I'm sure you know this. You do stand up now. It's sort of like a lot of guys treat it like they want to retain the mystery of it. Like, oh no, you shouldn't go to a class. Or you shouldn't do this. Or like everyone has a different school of thought on if you should just try and kind of figure it out on your own, or if stand-up comedy classes are good, or if they're lame, and if it's good for you, bad for you, whatever it is. I've never taken a stand-up comedy class, but I bought several books on like how to write jokes or how to be funny, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of those books really suck. So I probably have about 12 or so of them, and I'd say 3 of them are any good, and then you can kind of get some ideas from them. So basically, I'm taking long story short, I bought a couple books. I started writing shit down in journals. And after about a year of just kind of writing ideas down when they came to me, I went through it. So, like, all of 2011, I had just been trying to write shit.
Yeah.
Then I think it must have been New Year's 2012. I was like, all right, New Year's resolution, I'm going to actually try stand up. And it got to the point where end of January, hadn't done anything. So I was like, all right, second month. I looked through everything I'd written down, probably a couple hundred things, most of it absolute shit. That's to this day, most of the stuff you write, is kind of bullshit, and then you kind of cull out the good stuff. So
Yeah.
I went through the notebook, found probably like 5 ideas that I didn't hate, and I was like, all right, I could try these. And I literally Googled stand up open mic on my computer, and a couple things came up, and a phone number I think came up, or a guy's must have been his MySpace profile or his Facebook. I forget exactly, but I literally called the phone number. It was this guy who went by the name J. Smith Biatch. Are
Hmm.
you familiar with him?
You know what? It sounds familiar.
He's got a couple aliases. I don't know
Yeah,
if he's in the area anymore, but he
yeah.
used to. I mean, he won the Mama Award, I think, twice, the Modesto Area Music Award for comedy.
Okay, okay.
Um, so he was kind of like a known guy back before I started, and a little bit when I started, you know. So I think he also goes by like
Was he
what's his
white by chance?
yeah, no, yeah, he's a white guy.
Yeah.
He's
Okay,
a
okay.
white guy. He
I
has
think
I
I
forget his
know.
other names, but
Yeah,
he would like do silly songs was a huge part of his thing. He would make
yeah.
like anyway. Called him up. He was like, "Oh yeah, we got this open mic at the Other Place. There's literally a bar called the Other Place in Modesto."
Yes, I remember that bar because
Yeah,
I used, well, I still DJ, but back when
yeah,
I was doing gigs and doing clubs and bars and stuff, that I happened to drop by, and I think I was either DJing, doing a little set, or just checking out another friend do a set or something. But yeah, I know that
yeah.
bar. Yeah.
It's sort of a seedy type. I mean that stretch of Yosemite Road over there in Modesto is kind of like right by the train tracks.
Yeah.
It's right next to a clamper bar. You know, it's not a bad spot, but it's it's a little more rough and tumble.
Hmm.
Anyway, I went there. I had my, and that's the thing with me. I don't know if everyone's like this or not, but I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. I assume I'm gonna eat shit. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this, so I didn't tell anybody. I think I told one friend of mine that I was gonna go do this, but I was like, you can't come though. You know what I mean? It's gonna fuck my whole shit up. I need to. This needs to be for strangers. It's like for me. It's like I was pulling my dick out on chat roulette or something. It's like this is for anonymous strangers. I don't want to ever meet any of these people again. You know, it's like in my head, I was like, I need to minimize the suffering and the embarrassment that
Yeah.
this is gonna. Because I don't know. I catastrophize everything. So I'm
It
like,
was almost like telling your friend, leaving like a suicide letter,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then like if anything happens.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, just know I'm going here. If they find my car abandoned in a lot, don't believe the yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just a thing where I think the guy that I told is a buddy of mine, Kevin, who like works as a scientist at UC Davis now. But part of it was like I need to run these jokes by somebody just to be like, am I totally delusional or is there anything here? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that was part of it. Was like, hey man, I'm gonna go do this. Is there, just tell me if these even have potential.
Yeah.
And so he gave me a little bit of an opinion. Anyway, I was like texted him the night of. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go do it. Like it's like you want the support but not the embarrassment. I don't know. I don't think everyone's like that. I'm sure a lot of people, since I've been doing comedy now almost the better part of a decade, a lot of people on their first time they bring their whole fucking family, which is odd to me. But I also had a
Hmm.
weird upbringing, so I was just like, nah, let me minimize what the witnesses. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
Right.
it was a fucking mob hit. But I went and did that shit, and the first night that I ever did anything, there was one guy there, this guy named Jason Sohm. Back then, he went by Jason Violation.
Jason Song.
Yeah, you know him.
Yeah.
He's the homie. But my first week, he had been there the week before, so this was his second time on stage. It was my
Oh.
first time on stage,
Okay.
and so he got to witness that, and it was fine. Like I got a couple chuckles on probably two or three out of my five ideas, and
Okay.
it was whatever. And then, of course, I don't know if you experienced the same when you first started, but Jay Smith, the guy running the thing, was like, "Man, that was good. I got a show next week. You should come back and bring all your friends to watch you." Which of course he was selling tickets, and he was like, "Oh, this is a brand new dude. He's got to have a bunch of friends who would buy tickets." So he was using me as a bringer,
Promotional
which
too. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's a thing you don't know about when you start, and then you quickly find out either immediately or after a couple months. Someone's gonna find out that, oh, you haven't bothered all your friends to come to comedy shows yet. They're not sick of you, so bring them to my show and I'll charge them $10 tickets. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't know. That's got to be at least 10% of the revenue in stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? Is just unwitting friends of.
That's part of the game right there. If you can
Seriously,
pack the house some way or another,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't begrudge them for it. It's one of those things where everybody learns that the hard way, and it's also not even the hard way necessarily. I mean, you're gonna have people come out to a show anyway. It's just
Yeah,
the
for
thing.
sure.
The thing that bugged me about it, I think the only reason I talk about it in these terms is because, like I said, my whole plan was like, I'm not gonna tell fucking anybody about this. I'm gonna do this silently in the night, like I'm fucking solving crimes like Batman or something.
Batman, yeah.
And then after like 2 years of it, when I'm fucking dope as fuck, then I'm gonna let everyone know I do stand up, and they're gonna be like, "What? I didn't know you did.
Uh-huh.
What the hell?" And I'm gonna be already great, and no one will know me until I'm great,
Yeah.
which is a fucking insecurity problem for sure.
Yeah.
Where it's like I can't let anyone see.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my third performance, because he's like, "Oh, there's another mic over here. Go try that," and then bring everybody you ever met to the show, right? So my third time on stage ever was in front of a bunch of coworkers and friends and shit, and it went fine. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where when people are aware that you're starting, they're supportive. As long as you're not absolutely horrific, they'll laugh, and
Yeah.
it's cool. So ever since then, I've kind of just been plugging away at open mics. Like that was when I found out about bringer shows and how some of the comedy show stuff works. And then they had a mic in Modesto for a while at the Clarion Hotel. Every Monday I would go to that. And that was all of 2012. Like I just started doing that mic, and then little things here and there where some of the other comics would take me with them to Sacramento or whatever,
Yeah.
And then in 2013, I didn't have a car. So I basically didn't do stand-up for all of that year. I think I got on stage maybe 2 or 3 times, because I wasn't quick to like ask people for rides or anything. I was just like, oh, you got to be more established. I had all these ideas in my head about it.
Right.
So in 2014, I got a car again and basically went strong from then on. And honestly, compared to some people, I'm lazy about it. Like I get up, even before the pandemic, I would get up maybe a couple times a week or something, and over the years, like doing it 8 years, I should probably be further along than I am, but that's if I was working harder, you know what I mean? Like I have a new joke in my act about how I'm not an athlete because I've let myself go. I'm just like a stoner, and I've been chasing this comedy dream for 8 years. And then the joke is, I haven't even been chasing it that hard. That like courtesy jog you do to get across the street when there's cars waiting. That's how fast I've been chasing comedy. And it's just, to me, it's funny because it's true. That feels like about how hard I've been chasing this thing. It's just like, well, if I get to it, I get to it. But
right. Hey, don't rush me, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. It'll all fall into place or I'll die. It's fine, no worries. But so.
Well, it's gonna be a big punchline at the end. That's what that's what you're alluding to right there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's all that to say. Basically, I've been doing it since 2012, which is technically 8 years, but I didn't do it in 2013, and I was slow and lazy about it for several years. So I'd say I've probably had a good solid 6 years of doing stand up, you know what I mean? If you really added up all of the parts that count.
Right. No, that's what's up. Yeah, so okay, you're doing comedy, and like, when did you start like meeting other 209 comedians? Like, because I'll definitely we'll talk about the whole deaf puppies and and stuff, but
I forget about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially last year.
Yeah, because you mentioned Jason Psalm, like like
He was
did
right off the
did
bat.
did you just kind of did dolo, you kind of just stayed to yourself, or
Sorta,
you
yeah.
kind of just build up and started like you mentioned earlier, traveling with other comedians,
Yeah.
cuz when you start out, like in the beginning for me, I kind of just had someone take me. Like I think I had one of my nieces take me in the beginning. My
Yeah.
wife started eventually taking me after a while, and then once you build a relationship or start networking with other comedians locally, you kind of like,
Mhm.
hey, you kind of finally build up the courage to like, hey, like, hey, there's a mic, let's roll.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
definitely.
like
That's huge.
did you start out just by yourself going to the
Yeah.
mics, or
Yeah.
eventually going with
No,
other
yeah.
comedians?
It was kind of a slow roll for me. So I did, yeah, like I said, I met Jason the very first mic that I did. That was his second or third mic ever. He had started 1 week before me,
Right.
which is hilarious now that we're like homies, because it's funny how. Anyway, it's just so met him, did some random mic in series, I think, that host Jay Smith had told me about. Then that show that I did, that where it was a bringer, the third time I was ever on stage, that was actually at the Clarion Hotel. They had like conference rooms in there.
Hmm.
And so did that show there. Jason was on that show as well.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if it was just then or exactly what it was, but him or somebody was like, "Oh, they do mics here on Mondays, right?" So that became my spot. And I think it was the only spot I was aware of for at least a couple months.
Hmm.
So I would go every Monday. I would drive my VW Beetle from Turlock up to the Clarion and do Mondays there. That's where I met Saul. He was
Hmm.
there one night from Stockton.
Hmm.
And then, like, maybe a month or two in, Nick Larson showed up, and it was his first time ever.
Oh, wow.
Um, and he was one of those guys when he first got on stage, like, he didn't have the material there quite yet, but his stage presence was, like, really good. It was like, oh, this guy's clearly going to just be solid. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Um, so I mentioned those guys. There's other guys that were around. It's just, you know, people fall through the cracks, or not everybody really, like, is memorable or dedicated enough or just good enough, because the Deaf Puppies is a group of 9 comedians in the 209 that kind of formed around 2015ish, I guess.
Hmm.
But there's way more comedians in the 209 than what's in the Deaf Puppies. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like
yeah.
it became a, I mean, there's a whole story behind, not a good story, but there's a way that came together
Okay,
sort
yeah,
of
I was,
organically.
yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How
So,
did that whole thing like
yeah.
transpired?
Okay, yeah. So, well, I'll say, so that first year I probably rolled out to some mics with like Saul and Jason and Nick and I got this whining dog. Sorry if you can hear that.
Yeah, no, my
Um,
echolocation picked it up.
yeah, I was gonna say you probably extra hear it. But so
No, you're good. You're good.
I did a few mics with them that first year. So a bit of a relationship. They knew who I was. They they were ahead of me. It felt like, to some degree, or Saul certainly was. He had been doing it a couple years already.
Yeah, I think he
Um,
started in 2010 because I had him
yeah,
on recently. Yeah.
yeah. So exactly, and he'd been plugging away at it pretty hard. And so meeting some people that were even like past him, like Anthony Kay and Nick Aragon. I don't know if you know Nick Aragon, but he was a Stockton dude who's
Mm.
fantastic.
Oh, wow.
And so he was like, it's funny. It's I see the way that some of the newer guys like look at me just because I've been doing it since 2012, and I feel I'm like I'm still nothing. Like, that's the way I see myself,
Hmm.
but that's the way I used to see Nick Aragon. You know what I mean? I'm like, this guy's fucking amazing. You know what I mean? Just like, because he's just been doing it. His jokes were good. And anyway, so went that whole year, and I kind of disappeared from the scene in 2013, like I said, because I didn't have a car, and I wasn't like, I was also down in Turlock. They were all up Modesto and north of that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Everything was so I wasn't gonna be like, hey, one of you guys drive down to Turlock and then swoop. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It just
like backtrack.
yeah. So I didn't. But anyway, I got a car in 2014 again, and then here's how it kind of all came together. Uh, I randomly was at a bar in Turlock with some friends that I had just met from college days. Like I never went to college, but I went to college parties. You know what I mean? I lived near a college.
Yeah.
And so I was hanging out at this bar, and this dude was like, "Oh, hey, you're Connor, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was kind of familiar. And he's like, "You do comedy, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah, me and my buddy do comedy," and it was Taylor
Ah,
Evans
okay.
and his buddy Bruce, who doesn't really do comedy more. They both sort of tried it together, and Bruce fell off, but he kind of has like a whole career and shit. So, but it was Taylor, and it was like, oh, cool, cool, and we sort of just like talked about it for a second, and then randomly several weeks later, I used to do parkour, you know, like free running. I think people know what that is at this point.
Okay.
It's like if for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's look just Google PARKOUR, but it's like those guys who jump on roofs and shit. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like outdoor gymnastics essentially. But I was doing it at the college with a buddy of mine who does it in Turlock and fucking around, just kind of killing time, trying to get attention from women and stuff. And Taylor was like there waiting for some girl or something. He didn't go to there either, but we were both just non-students hanging out at the college, you know,
Yeah.
trying to take advantage of what the college can offer, I guess. And he's like, "Oh, hey man," I started talking to him again. We started talking about our favorite comedian, who I think both of our favorite comedian at the time, and probably still to this day, is Louis C.K. I won't go into what I feel about what has happened to him over the
Yeah.
past few years. Other than that, I think most of it's horseshit. Anyway, so we started talking about that, and this was actually mid 2013, and he kind of like gave me one of his buddies' numbers who was trying stand up at the time and ended up going up to Sacramento and doing a mic and shit. And those guys stopped doing it, but we kind of stayed in touch. And then when I got a car in 2014, we started hitting the Stockton mics together,
Hmm.
and it felt like my sort of rebirth, like restarting. And it was cool. That's when we there was Speakeasy in Modesto. There was the Impresso mic in Stockton,
Hmm.
and then random stuff like all around. And we met people. The Speakeasy, I introduced him to all the people that I knew from when I started, you know.
Yeah.
And we met AJ at Speakeasy. He had moved into town from the Bay Area, and there's all these sort of memories that are popping up as I'm saying this, but basically, over a couple of years, I think Taylor sort of established himself as a decent comic. Same with me. Andre Morton was showing up around there,
Hmm.
and so it was kind of me, Taylor, and Andre were kind of like this new little league of younger comics that are kind of making it happen since 2014. And then at the same time, in the same sort of circles, but more so and getting more work than us and having done it longer were uh, Anthony K, Saul, Jason Somm, Nick Larson, and then my current roommate Chris Teixeira,
Hmm.
who they'd all been like Anthony and Chris, I think and Saul had been doing it since like 2010, maybe a little longer for those other two guys, and so they were sort of we had looked up to them, you know, as
Yeah.
like the guys from our area who were solid. And so this I don't really know the beginning because I wasn't part of it at the beginning, but uh basically it was um let me see if I can get all the people.
Hmm.
Anthony, Chris, Jason, Nick, and Saul.
That's five.
So they had started a basically just a Facebook group chat where they would just bullshit with each other, and it went through a bunch of different names like Facebook group chats tend to do.
Hmm.
And they Chris actually owns a puppy. It turns out it's deaf, so he has this deaf puppy named Banshee. And so at one point he put her picture on the little group chat icon and made the group called Deaf Puppies, right?
Oh, wow.
So that's the origin of it. Is literally
Okay.
it was a stupid name for a group chat with this little deaf puppy as the mascot,
Yeah.
and then they just kept that name and kind of embraced it, and it was started as a joke, like they would sort of just rep deaf puppies and make this like paw hand signal to each other thing,
Yeah.
and like sort of say that it shows and like, oh yeah, we're the deaf puppies, and it was sort of just a silly joke, like we're some 80s street gang, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And but like anything, it's like Kurt Vonnegut says, be careful what you pretend to be because you become what you pretend to be or whatever. And so it became real-ish, t-shirts got made, etc. And then I'd say sometime around mid 2015, I think,
Hmm.
um, me and Taylor and Andre had all been just doing well enough that these other guys who had been doing it longer were like, oh, you guys are solid, you guys are part of us, essentially. Like it
Okay.
was like you guys, and I think Taylor was like, for the symbolic nature of it, was like, yeah, we're like kind of like pushing to be in the Deaf Puppies, this like, sort of silly thing that was becoming real.
Uh-huh.
And so the same way that their thing started, like as a joke, they're like, all right, you guys are the new litter, you know what I mean? That's You guys will be the fresh, and so at that point, now there's 8. I think we got added to the group chat. Silly shit, but like anything, you just make a name, you speak it into existence, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's a real thing. And so, and then I'd say 2 or 3 years later, AJ got added as well. He had
Oh,
been
okay.
pushing pretty hard and doing a lot of shows and making things happen. And so it was a thing where it was just the 209 comics in an area who enjoyed each other's company and respected each other's comedy.
Right, right.
Because my reason for saying that is, there were plenty, not a ton, but several other comics in the area at any given time. But you know how it is, man. Like, not everybody is progressing as fast as everybody else. Some people just don't have the self-awareness, or just aren't really funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Or just
what?
jogging on the.
Yeah, yeah. And
Nah.
so, but yeah, so that's how Deaf Puppies became a thing, and it's one of those things where it's still like, I don't know, it's like technically a real thing, I guess, but it's more just like a group of guys who vouch for each other,
Right,
more or
right.
less. It's not, it doesn't serve any real practical purpose other than we sometimes do little bullshit sketch things
Hmm.
together, and then the only real purpose it serves, as far as I can tell, is if I'm in the Bay Area and there's some show and some guy's like, oh, I've never heard of you. He's like, oh, he's one of those deaf puppies. Oh, cool, okay. And that, now all of a sudden I'm on the show. So it's helpful
And
just in being part of a group.
yeah, yeah, no, it kind of solidifies
Mm-hmm.
whomever is in the group trying to do something or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it. I mean, this is a horrible analogy because it's nothing close, but it's like saying, you're, oh, that guy is a Marine or something. Like, you don't need to know anything about him. He's part of this group. You're like, all right, now I know a lot about who that guy is or what that guy's capable
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
We're not some, that's some shit. Like, we're a bunch of lazy fat slobs. We're not. But point being, it's a name that gives you a little bit of a sense of like, okay, well, if Anthony K and Saul Trujillo, blah blah blah, etc., like hang with them and vouch for them, then they must be. It's like in the Bay Area, I think they have a crew called Hella Funny. They use that hashtag,
Oh, okay.
and so it's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just like,
yeah.
it's just comics kind of being like, all right, we're together, we vouch for each other.
Right, right. Yeah.
So yeah,
Give you a little.
that's essentially that.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's the fun fact of how the Deaf Puppies came
Yeah,
about. That's an
right.
awesome story. I
Go
appreciate
ahead
that.
and send that to the History Channel. make make this special. Yeah.
No.
So, and now it's. I mean, obviously with this pandemic, it doesn't serve much purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, well, going back to the whole name and stuff, once it sticks, once it catches on, it's
Yeah,
like you can't stop it really. Like oh
yeah,
okay, like this is now etched in history forever. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, exactly. It's like Shakespeare said, "What's in a name?" You know,
yeah,
a name becomes what it means to who it means to.
yeah.
You know.
So next thing I kind of wanted to dive into was the like you mentioned Saul. I had Saul on the podcast not too long ago.
Yeah,
Um and um and you done some work with Saul.
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The whole comic strip thing,
Oh
like
yeah,
like
the Scumbag Alley.
yeah. But what's go into that a little bit. Like what how that
Yeah.
came about.
Um. That's a good question because I'm gonna have trouble remembering the exact origin conversation there, but I think the main thing with that is part of it is living in the 209. There's not quite as much opportunity for stage time as if we had lived in, say, Sacramento or San Francisco or something,
Yeah.
where there's just rooms and rooms. So in this, it's like you kind of want to first of all make your own rooms, which was something he was better about doing. I'm real lazy with it, but at the same time, you got to find creative outlets where you're still working the comedy muscle because funny is funny. Like a lot of stand-ups want to shit on like improvisation or other types of comedy. Like this is more pure blah blah, and it has its own merits that make you love stand-up. As a stand-up comedian, but comedy is comedy. If you know how to make people laugh, that'll translate.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we were looking for stuff to do. Sketches are good, but they're also they take time and a crew. You have to coordinate and find people to do it right, and then you have that trouble with creative control and
Hmm.
it's is the actor doing it in the way that was the vision of the director and all that shit. And so we try to do that stuff here and there, but one of the things that we kind of realized is if you can have a simple idea, you can convey it in a drawing pretty easy.
Yeah.
And so we have a buddy, Aaron Croman. He was a dude who was at the mics, the Clarion days and stuff, and he would kind of come and go. He wasn't always there, but he was always a cool dude and a funny guy. He had great ideas, and he's been an artist for the longest time. And we've basically got in touch with him, like, hey, we want to do this sort of. Well, let me backtrack real quick. I forgot to mention because it's based around the house we lived in. Saul used to live here in the house with me and Chris
Hmm.
for a while, and it's this little farmhouse out in Manteca. So we just live in the middle of an almond orchard with a few dogs, and we had a couple pigs out back for a while, and it's just sort of this party house
Yeah.
essentially where before the pandemic we'd throw parties here, and it's a bachelor stinkhole pad.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And Saul, I think, probably came up with the original idea of like, all right, we'll just make stupid little sketch ideas about stuff that would happen out here, or maybe stuff that wouldn't happen out here, but we'll say it happened out here. You know what I mean? And we'll call it Scumbag Alley. The
Hmm.
idea was like we're fucking morning till night stoners at a farm, and we live the lifestyle that we live, and just kind of conveying that. So
Yeah.
we got in touch with Aaron Croman, asked him what it would cost to do like a little 4-panel cartoon or comic strip, I should say, and we just started writing dumb little ideas. And every month or two, we'd be like, all right, we should come up with another. Like literally, it's just like let's have something to do. Let's have our name on a thing. Let's try and force ourselves to be creative, because
Hmm.
sometimes, especially if you're a stoner who doesn't live in a comedy town and stage time isn't right there for you, it's like it is easy to be lazy. And so if you don't put a fire under your ass to like create something, you probably won't create very much stuff. So
Facts, facts.
yeah, I mean, you're doing it right now. You got the podcast. It's exactly what you got to do, is like kind of make your own shit happen. So
Yeah.
um so we just started doing those, and um they're pretty fun. We haven't done one recently. I think we did one right before like Halloween.
Hmm.
and that might have been the most recent one. He moved down to LA, so
Yeah.
we'll pitch ideas back and forth still every once in a while, but it's not as immediate now, you know.
Right. Right. So,
And then,
oh, go
mhm.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, and then since we've had a relationship with Chris Durant, who runs the Savage Henry comedy magazine
Hmm.
up in Humboldt, and we've been going to the Savage Henry Festival for the last 3 or 4 years. It's just my favorite week of the year.
Mm.
We basically realized, oh, we could send a few of these to him, and so he'll print them up in the Savage Henry magazines,
Okay.
which is pretty cool just to see it actually printed, you know.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
how long how long do you guys like obviously you gotta put it together and stuff, like how
hmm
often do you guys put out a comic strip, or and how long does
Well,
it take, I guess.
that's the funny thing about it, man. It's been pretty inconsistent. Like we should have a thing where it's like, okay, every 2 weeks or every once a month.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it should be. And for I think we probably had a stretch of time where we were doing that. But it's like a month or two will go by and then one of us will be like, "Oh shit, we haven't done one. Let's." And then it's just like brainstorm,
Yeah.
make something. And so then when that happens, that's the funny thing. If you have a really good idea, you can probably have the script or the out. I don't know if you'd call it a script for a comic strip,
Hmm.
but because we're not drawing it, we're just sending the idea and the wording. It's and sort of like as a storyboard to Aaron.
Mm.
Like I'll try to convey to him, you know, this frame is looking over Saul's shoulder from the living room, and you see blah blah blah. Hold on one
uh
second.
okay.
Okay. Um, this dog is just wanting his mom. She went to get coffee.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so if it's the thing. Like I can sometimes come up with an idea, and we're like, oh, that's fucking perfect. Send it off, and it takes, and then Aaron gets it back to us in a week or two, and that's that. And it literally took a day for us, and then we just pay him like a flat fee, and then he sends us the finished product. And
Okay.
then there's other times when it's like, fuck, we need to think, like we'll decide, okay, Halloween's coming up, or let's have a Halloween idea.
Yeah.
And then we spend like 2 weeks brainstorming, trying to think of something good, or just being lazy for 2 weeks, and then in the last day, like, all right, let's fucking finally do it. You know, so it's a lot of times it's just a matter of sitting down and forcing yourself to really turn your brain on.
Right. As far as yeah, depending, like you said, it could be a day or a week or two putting it
Yeah,
together, and then you send it off.
yeah,
So the guy that you send it off to, you said Aaron, right? Aaron.
yeah, yeah,
He does the animation or the artwork. Is that what it is?
yeah,
Or
exactly. Because
oh, okay, okay.
me and Saul can't draw for shit. So, but it's like I think we kind of realized with like this day and age with cell phones, and you know you have all these apps where you can make videos, you can
Hmm.
do little
Softwares.
Photoshop things. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
there's all these like creative options. The other thing is like you realize, oh, and there's a ton of people with like skills and talents that they're sitting around doing stuff that you can outsource stuff to. So if you can't, you don't have to be able to draw to do a comic strip. You know what I mean? You just have to know a guy who can draw and will do it for $40.
Right, right.
And if it's worth it to you, and that's the thing, I think we send them something in that range, probably more now, but um that's one of the things that's actually helpful to me is like, all right, if we're gonna spend actual cash on making this thing come to fruition, I want it to be good,
Yeah.
you know. And so it kind of forces you to like sit down and really make sure you're getting every laugh line out of a 4 panel comic strip.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is just a matter of like at one point realizing, oh, we want to do this. We can't draw. I mean, we could try to learn to draw or just like take the time, or we have fucking creative, talented friends or people that we've met who probably could help us out with this.
Yeah.
And
Cut cut out the middleman. Cut out the middleman and just
add a middleman,
or I mean, yeah.
and you know what I mean. At that point, it's kind of like
Yeah.
it's like you can't draw. Fucking find someone who can
So yeah,
draw.
yeah,
You
no,
know.
no, you're right.
And the great thing about that I've realized with I think it's also a great thing about like audio content, which most people do podcasts, but the old form of like radio plays,
Mhm.
you can do so much because you're just creating a universe with sounds and words. So you can make anything happen. You can
Yeah.
have Godzilla storming a city for $0 in a radio play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just your imagination. And
Right.
same thing with a comic strip. It's like if I want to have someone skydiving into a dinosaur's mouth, it's just a drawing. Like it doesn't cost anything extra. If you want to make that on video,
Mhm.
you've got to fucking have some sort of a CGI budget, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so you can find these sort of avenues where creativity is more conducive to just getting it done. And that's one thing I had heard on an interview with I think Dimitri Martin was on Pete Holmes' podcast back
Mhm.
in the day on You Made It Weird, and it was one of the first episodes, and they had this little conversation about letting a joke be what it is. And like I remember the idea was that some jokes just kind of feel more like a comic, some jokes feel more like a stand-up bit, some jokes feel like a sketch.
Mhm.
And don't if like you have an idea that feels more like a sketch, then just put it in a sketch. Don't force it to be a stand-up bit if it's not
Right.
gonna
Right.
work as a stand-up bit, you know?
Right.
And so that's kind of part of what the idea was with doing a comic strip, is just like letting the thing be what it's naturally going to want to be.
Yeah. That's what's
And I think
up.
that's it's helpful. Yeah,
Hell yeah. There you go. Connor
yeah.
Martin breaking it down for us, y'all.
I'm gonna impart the knowledge I stole.
Yeah.
I'm like
um.
Robin Hood. I'm
Yeah.
like the Robin Hood app.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned earlier. Like with the whole pandemic thing. It's been tough as far as like going out to do comedy or just doing live stand up and stuff. I came across I think one time you were on the Zoom comedy and it was actually pretty cool to it's like, oh shit, look, fucking Connor Martin's on
Oh
Zoom,
yeah,
hell yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, it
yeah.
was
That's right.
Pete Munoz Zoom show, and yeah, it was good to see you on there. And then like I said,
Yeah,
we
Pete's
we met
awesome.
up not too long ago at one of the open mics in series and stuff. And
Yeah,
but yeah, like how did you like were you kind of on the fence with the whole Zoom thing or
sort of. I mean, part of it is just taking the time to like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like on that page where they're all listed, like a lot of them you gotta like get on the list early if you find the schedule, then hit the person up and go, put me on your list for Tuesday, and it's fucking Saturday right now. But I it felt like a lot of that stuff, maybe I just wasn't trying that hard,
hmm
because it was one of those things where I'm like, this is weird. I'm not super motivated to get on here and try these,
yeah.
but I'll do what I can here and there. And AJ was doing a ton of them,
hmm
and I was like, "Hey man, how are you? What's the deal? I don't want to have to look through this whole fucking spreadsheet.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Just tell me which ones are going."
Yeah.
And so, like for a minute there, I probably did maybe a half dozen of them,
hmm
sort of early on,
Yeah.
when I was like, "All right, I'll try to just find what's available to like sign up day of or show up and sign up, you know."
Yeah.
And I felt like it was different, obviously, than regular stand up, and I also felt like maybe I hadn't been in these groups as long as some of the people who were kind of in there from day one.
Right.
So it felt like, oh, they're not gonna maybe want to pay attention until I've been around a little longer and like paid my dues, because it becomes comics performing for comics, and
Mm.
so it's
Yeah.
like, if this guy's not going to sit and listen to me, why should I sit and listen to them? I don't know if that's what people are actually thinking,
hmm
but it's what I'm thinking, and so I project that onto everybody else. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck this guy. I don't. And so I was like, these are kind of whatever. I'm not having a great time on them. And then I don't know. I kind of like sat off to the sidelines on those for a minute, and
Yeah.
then I think it's the other thing is just if I happen to have the night free and it's right in front of my face. I just haven't pursued them super hard.
Right,
Like
right, right.
Pete is kind of one of the homies. We did like a comedy tour thing with me, Taylor, Saul, and him back in 2017
Hmm.
up the West Coast, and just kind of got close that way. And so he'll post his thing on his page whenever they're going to do the Woodham's mic,
Yeah.
which was one of my favorite mics, live mics back in the day. That's such a great open mic in San Jose.
Yeah, I
But
heard a lot about it. I wish
it's
once
fun time.
when things open up, I would definitely like to go out there one of these days.
Yeah, yeah, you
Um,
definitely got it. But so he's posted stuff where I literally just have to message him like, "Hey, can I get a spot?" And that's that, and then he sends me the link, and it's super easy. But
super easy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've always been like just not computer illiterate, but just annoyed by computers. Where
Hmm.
it's like, all right, I'm gonna go do this. Oh, I gotta download a different fucking thing. I don't have that soft. Okay, let
Yeah.
me download that, and then I've got an outdated computer, and I'm the type of guy who's like 10,000 unread emails and shit.
Right.
I don't like dealing with stuff, and so when it's like, oh, they're all on a spreadsheet, and then you just got to read across this tiny little line, and then you'll find a person's name, and then you
Right.
got to message them on a Tuesday
Yeah.
between 1:30 and 2 for a spot on a Thursday
Right.
at 7 p. Yeah, it's like fuck. I was you lost me at the spreadsheet. You know what I mean?
You lost me last week.
Yeah. So, and they're not all like that. I'm sure they're not all
Yeah.
like that,
Well,
but
well,
it's convoluted.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. When I started out, obviously I was also on the fence, but um, I think by now, I think the for me like the novelty kind of wore off. But
Yeah.
I was really hitting it hard in the
Yeah, I was gonna
beginning.
say. I saw you on a lot of those. I mean, not that I was even on them, but
Yeah.
I just saw you throwing your hat in the ring.
Yeah, and so I was doing that, and I was meeting. I obviously like I'll tell people, the people that I've met or that I had on the podcast is that two things I'll take away from it. Like it got me to work on my material, and
Yeah.
also the other one was networking with a lot of
Yeah.
folks, and so I'll
That's a good point.
definitely take away those two things. But like I
Yeah.
said, I was hitting it hard in the beginning, maybe the first couple months and stuff. And
Yeah.
you're right about the whole spreadsheet and signing up a week in advance or a few days before.
Yeah.
It gets kind of confusing. It's like because like what ends up happening sometimes, like I'll sign up for something and I was like, oh shit, did I oh shit, is this the day? Did I have a mic today? Or
Yeah.
like, oh, what's up?
Yeah.
So that does
Exactly.
happen. And like you mentioned, Pete's room, yeah, you can act like easy as 1 2 3, you can just hit him up
Yeah.
if you want to join his mic. So there's times where like
Yep.
a lot of people will do that as well. But
Yeah.
I believe Nico Lukov that runs the Displaced Comedians,
Yeah.
he puts it all in one spreadsheet to where it's
Yeah.
easy to
Which
find
I
for a
do
lot of
appreciate
folks.
him doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely respectful in that sense. And
Yeah.
but whether the mic is ongoing or not, or it's something to kind of like reference, like, oh, okay, okay, because
Yeah.
maybe because some people may like that kind of thing, like to
Oh,
where
definitely.
to where others like, okay,
It's
yeah, whatever,
an organized person with a day planner and shit. I'm sure
Right.
would love that. And I really, I'm 31 in a month and a half, so you know what I mean. So I should start to be that type of person.
Hmm.
But the type of person that I am, I fucking fly by the seat of my pants through my life.
Yeah.
So when it's stuff like that, it's like I've just had natural resistance to getting onto those things, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't, because the first or second one of Pete's mics that I did were like kind of all right. And I was like, all right, this is weird. I feel uncomfortable. I'm
Hmm.
talking through my jokes too fast because I'm like waiting for laughs that aren't coming,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and since they're not coming, it's just you want to fill the silence. And then the third time that I went up, I think it might have been the time that I saw you on there.
Hmm.
I was like, you know what? I've got these jokes. I like these ideas. They're silly. I'm going to lean forward and just sort of more acknowledge that this is a little bit weird, and I'm reading my notes, but here's my ideas, and just talk through them,
Hmm.
almost like I'm reading them to a group of comedians at the back table in a Starbucks, and I'm just pitching bits, because
Right.
you can't come to it as if it's performance when it's not quite a performance. It's more of like a recital, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I will recite this, and I had a great time on that one, and I felt like people laughed, and I did well as far as whatever doing well is in one of those rooms, you know?
Right. Right.
And but then I think I also fall into that trap of like, all right, well, that was good. Now I won't go back, so that the last taste in my mouth of that was a good
A
taste. I don't
good
want to
taste.
go and sully
Yeah.
it, you know. No, I don't want to go and eat it again in one of those
Yeah.
fucking
Right.
rooms. That is one of the most self-defeating mindsets of all time.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, no,
yeah,
it's an interesting dynamic for sure. And yeah, you kind of have to like navigate and maneuver around it one way or
yeah,
another if you're really trying to I guess sort of so called like push through it as far as like Zoom comedy because
definitely.
you can kind of like once you're do a lot of those, you can kind of get a hang of it after a while. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah, I'm sure
yeah,
there's a rhythm
yeah,
to it.
there's a rhythm to it. Yeah, and a lot of times, depending on who runs it or what show, they'll have an audience. That fan, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Oh yeah,
He does his
first
thing.
season of Last Comic Standing.
Yeah, and then I auditioned for him, and then I ended up doing a couple shows with him. So, and he has
Nice.
a real professional way of going about it, and I was like pretty impressed with what he was trying to do and stuff. And I think he's
Yeah,
one of the rare uh comedians that's doing it out there, like the
yeah, who's actually yeah,
headliner
yeah,
stuff, you know.
exactly. It feels like most of it is sort of a lemonade stand put together by 7-year-olds, but like
I
every
like
once
that. I
in a
like
while,
that.
you see these guys where it's like, oh, that's a legitimate business with licenses and things.
All right.
Um,
Um,
but yeah,
all right,
yeah,
Connor. We'll probably wrap it up in a couple of minutes here.
for sure.
Before I do, I have these three
Yes,
questions that I usually ask my guests.
hit me.
Um, so we're gonna run through it, and you can give me your answer. It's no pressure. You can answer one or pass, whatever. It's like fuck you, Elvin. I don't
For
want to
sure.
answer that. That's retarded.
That's my answer for all
Yeah,
three.
that's my answer.
Just kidding.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. First question. Question one is aliens or Bigfoot, and
Hmm.
question two is if you weren't doing comedy, what else would you be doing? And question three, last but not least, is what is your go-to food?
Okay. So, question one: aliens or Bigfoot? Any more context, or is just my
Yeah,
preference?
just just general perspective
Okay,
on it.
I'm definitely gonna say aliens,
Mhm.
and I think no matter how you phrase the question,
Yeah, yeah.
aliens, because I feel like aliens make sense.
Hmm.
There's a giant universe. We can barely see any of it. We're all a little bit smarter than monkeys.
Yeah.
There's no reason that can't happen elsewhere, just really far away. So yeah, aliens for one.
There you go.
Plus, I keep seeing shit in the news about it. And
Boom.
anyhow,
There you go. There you have it.
aliens. That's I'm on record. Aliens. Two. If I wasn't doing comedy, what would I be? That's a interesting one because I'm barely doing comedy. Um, no, I would probably have gone to college, and I would probably have ended up doing some sort of either communications or psychology degree, maybe English.
Mm.
And then I'd probably try to either work in the psychological field, or I would try to write. Like I enjoy writing,
Yeah.
just even if I'm not writing comedy. I like the idea of just conveying thoughts or experiences well in writing. So
There you go.
I'd probably try to write
All
if
right.
I wasn't doing comedy. And then you said go to food.
Yes, go to
Go
food. Yeah,
to.
because
That's
we're in a
interesting.
pandemic, so it's like if you had
Yeah.
to survive for like a couple weeks or a month on
Yeah.
something, what is the go to food
Shit.
for Connor Martin?
Well, I mean, living in Manteca, there's a place called Lou's Chicken Bowl that I go to too often.
Mm.
Probably. I mean, like I walk in, and before I'm through the door, she has my order punched into the computer. So that's probably a
That's a
good sign.
Chinese joint, right? Or
I think so.
yeah,
Technically,
yeah.
yeah, it's like
No,
teriyaki bowls and
I think
stuff.
I've been there before. Yeah, yeah.
It's on Main Street. Shout out Lou's Chicken Bowl. Give
Those
me some free
chicken
shit.
ball. There you go. Boom.
And yeah, there's probably some other ones I could come up with, but that one, the fact that came to mind so easily is probably a good sign that that's the answer.
There you go. Loose chicken ball.
There we are.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
So where can they find you on online if they want to follow you or message you or anything?
I'm on Instagram at Connor Farton. There's an underscore in between. It's like Connor Martin, but with an F. So Connor _ Farton there. I'm on Twitter at Connor Martin, CONNOR Martin. I don't really use Twitter that often, but maybe that'll change. Follow me.
Yeah.
At least I won't spam your feed.
There you
know
go.
what I mean?
There
I'm barely posting, so it's a free investment.
There you go.
Otherwise, I don't know when this will come out, but I have a show at Laughs Unlimited. 2 shows, one February 5th and one February 6th at 7 p.m. each. And those tickets will probably sell out quick. Kabir Singh is headlining.
Nice.
He's quite hilarious. As far as finding me online, otherwise, check out Scumbag Alley on Instagram as well. Just Google Scumbag Alley. And then what else? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
That's about it.
Follow him, y'all. Check him out on Instagram. Hit him up for some tickets at Laughs Unlimited. Like you just mentioned Kabir Singh's going to be headlining. Kabir was supposed to be on this virtual comedy that I was on last night. I guess I don't know what happened. I guess he didn't show. But
were there any sports to bet on last night?
Yeah, right.
Because it was probably that.
Right. But yeah, no, that's what's up. As far as
he is truly hilarious.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll promote shows just because I'm on them.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're selling a product, but you're like proud of the product you're selling.
Yeah.
And you feel different. Yeah, you're not going to go wrong going to see Kabir. He's
there we go.
Fucking hilarious.
No, he is. I checked out some stuff online. I was like, oh shit, man, this dude's funny.
Yeah, he's great.
But yeah, as far as my stuff, where's my damn podcast? Be sure to share, like, subscribe. It's all it's on all the various streaming platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, all that stuff. This will be on my YouTube channel as well. So be sure to check it out and share, man. Come on, help the brother out.
Hell yeah.
Help
the brother out.
And yeah, man. Connor, it was a pleasure. It was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Man, dope stuff. Until next time, y'all. Peace.
Peace. All right, later, man.